because you need that battery power to control things during entry, but there was battery power in the lunar module, but there was no way to get connected to the lunar module so that they could be in the command module and not use the command module batteries. So in the space of about 15 or 20 minutes, the people on the ground figured out a way to connect up to the lunar module batteries, and we could use them since we weren't going to the moon and weren't going to need the lunar module batteries. But they didn't have any amount of power in it, even coming close to being necessary, what would normally be needed to run all the equipment. So the idea was, okay, we need to shut everything off except just the stuff that's absolutely necessary. So one of the things I had also to control rockets in the entry module called the command module. And then one of the propellants in that, and you get the tanks full of the propellants, and then there's go down a line to where the engines are, and these little propellant lines are going all over from the tanks to the 12 rocket engines. Those lines are small, and they get cold or hot easy. So for the cold condition, we had heaters on the lines to make sure they stayed warm and the propellants didn't freeze. So I got called in after the Apollo 13 thing had happened, and I had been one of the guys that had been primarily responsible for doing the thermal analysis of all the systems. How hot is everything going to get? How cold is everything going to get? Is anything going to freeze? You know, and then what are we going to do about it? Where do we put the heaters? All that kind of stuff. So when I first came in, I said, "Hey, Norm, we're shutting off all your heaters because we just haven't got the power to run them." I said, "Christ, you can't do that. You know, the damn propellant is going to freeze, and then the control rockets for entry won't work. You know, and we'll have a catastrophe during entry." So, man, we haven't got the power to run those heaters. Norm, you go figure out something. We're turning them off. And so I had to get with the thermal guys and the structural guys and figure out ways to do and keep things pointed at the sun and all that kind of stuff. And one of the propellants froze at 12 degrees. And the coldest part of the system, when we finally came into re-entry and turned that system on, it was at 15 degrees. So we got within 3 degrees, and so I was holding my breath, you know. But we got those guys back, and one of them was a guy named Fred Hayes, who ended up being my neighbor for a number of years in Payneville town, Pasadena, that I lived in Houston. So, but he's moved now to, I think he's in Louisiana somewhere or something.
Hey, Norm.
Something like that.
Want to tell them how you got your start? That you started in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, you know, I told you I'm a chemical engineer. I went to Rice University for a while in Houston, and then finished my degree at Tulsa University, where I was from. Got a master's degree, fully intending to go into the petrochemical business. When the space program came about, as I told you earlier, I said, man, I got to do that because I don't want it to be science fiction. I want to be part of the science reality. So I called and found out where the staffing office, the hiring office, was in Houston, and called and said, "I'm a chemical engineer. I'm working in a refinery in Oklahoma. I have a master's degree, and I would really like the opportunity to participate, to contribute to the manned spacecraft program." And this lady I was talking to said, "Oh, well, Mr. Chaffee, thank you so much for your interest, but I don't think we need any chemical engineers. I think we're looking for electrical engineers and mechanical engineers and you know, things like that. You know, I know aeronautical engineers and aerospace engineers." And I said, "Well, you know, there's so many things that chemical engineers can do that, you know, surely there's some areas that where, you know, a chemical engineer could fit in." And so she looked at her, what you call them, position description. She had a book of it. This job does this, and she finally found one. "Oh, well, here's some pages that say that it's okay to hire chemical engineers for this." I said, "Oh, great, what is it?" She says, "It's called energy systems." I said, well, what is that? She says, well, I don't know, it just says energy system. So I thought for about 5 seconds and said, okay, I'm going to go to university for 8 years. I've got a master's degree. I've had, 4 classes beyond normal calculus. I had 4 classes in advanced calculus. I've had, 4 or 5 chemistries. I've had, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, colloidal chemistry, physical chemistry. I've had the electricity courses. I've had fluid flow of compressible fluids, fluid flow of incompressible fluids, burner design, heat transfer, mass transfer, that kind of stuff. I said, lady, yes, whatever that entails, I'm an expert in that. She says, oh my goodness, well, you should send us an application. I said, well, I will. So I got the address and I got an application, sent it in, and almost by return mail got a thing back offering me a position in energy systems, which I still had no idea what it was. And the pay was about the same as at the refinery, so I talked to my wife and said, what do you think? And she said, well, you do what you need to do, and the baby and I are going with you, So I went out and gave my notice to the refinery, and I went to my mechanic and said, hey, can my old Pontiac get from Tulsa to Houston okay? Because it's been going, So he fixed it up, and so a month or so later, we were in an apartment in Houston, and on May the 13th, 1962, I walked in. So that's over 55 years ago. And I've been there ever since, had a good time. I found out that what they wanted me to do, said, we want you to work on rocket engines. I said, oh, great, thinking of the booster engine. They said, no, there's another bunch that does that. We're going to work on the steering rockets. This kind of thing is how I got into these little rockets and that kind of stuff. So on the Mercury program, the steering rockets were 1 pound, 2 pounds, and 5 pounds thrust. On the Gemini program, which came next, they were like 90 pounds. It was a bigger spacecraft. On the Apollo, they were 100 pounds. When we got to the shuttle, space shuttle kind of thing, that's like a 737. It's big, weighs 250,000 pounds. Its dimensions are quite large and everything. There were 44 steering rockets on that vehicle, and their thrust was about 1,000 pounds. It was 989 pounds was their thrust. So when they went off, it was quite a whoomp. It wasn't it was a whoop like that. And their minimum firing time was not 14 milliseconds, it was 40 milliseconds. And they made so much noise that the crew complained that they couldn't sleep. So we had to work with the guidance and control people just for periods when they were sleeping. We tried to just let the spacecraft do what it wanted to do, roll and twist or whatever, so that we didn't wake them up. And then when everybody's awake, we get it all pointed back where it was supposed to be pointing. So that's how I got on board. The way I survived was by learning what I had to learn. Because when I got there, they said rockets. I said, oh man, I did a homework problem on physical chemistry, I think, on rockets one time. That's about all I know about them, other than you blow up a balloon and let it go. That's a rocket, but that's probably not what they're interested in, So manner of talking to people, going to places where other people were rocket experts, including going to talk to the Germans, the V2 guys, and that kind of stuff. And interestingly, side note, I had a very good friend who was a few years older than I was. He was probably 10 years older than I was, but he had been a P-52 fighter pilot in Britain in the Second World War. He told me, he said, I love these Germans who we go to see. But he says, in 1944, 1945, I was flying bomber escort in the Peenemünde, Germany, trying to kill those guys, and they were on the ground with the best collection of anti-aircraft weapon that was anywhere in Northern Europe at the time. They were trying to kill me. And he says, now we're meeting in conference rooms and talking and having coffee and going for beer, all that kind of stuff. He said, boy, how how times change. So it just amazing. So that's how I got there.
How about we go back a little further when you were a kid growing up and the chemistry set and cooking?
Well, I was, yeah, as a youngster back in those days, I was always curious, and that is a critical characteristic if you want to be a scientist or an engineer. Why is this the way it is? How does it work? Why does it work that way? You can go back to the Newton conundrum where he's sitting under the apple tree and it falls and hits him on the head. And he said, why did that fall down and hit me? Why didn't it go up or go that way or something like that? So from that came, the theory of gravity and Newton's laws and all those kind of things, just from this one questioning thing. You didn't just accept that it happened. Why did that happen that way? So as a youngster, as soon as I was old enough, I had a microscope, and I'd go over to the local park and fish out minnows and get water that had amoebas and stuff in it, and go home and look at these things, and I'd kill ants and spiders and put them under there and look at them, and butterfly wings, and just really interesting stuff. So I had a microscope, I had a telescope, go out in the backyard and look at the stars, and I learned the constellations and that kind of thing. And then as I got older, my parents bought me a nice chemistry set, and I don't think you can do that these days because of the danger. But they came with a little booklet that would tell you experiments to do that demonstrate certain principles, and one had a thing where you had to use a certain chemical as an oxidizer. That means it's very reactive with a fuel that makes some reaction to form something else. This oxidizer is called potassium permanganate. It's a very deep purple chemical. So the deal was you put in this little, I forget how many milligrams you weighed out on my little gram, and put it in 25 milliliters of water in this test tube, and then you put it over your Bunsen burner and heat it up and to near boiling, and then you did something else with it. Well, my Bunsen burner wasn't working, and so that was a problem. So I said, well, Mom's got a gas stove, and so I said, that's almost like a Bunsen burner. So I had one of these clips that you can put around the test tube and hold it out into the fire. So I turned the stove on real low and went holding this test tube with this purple solution in there and putting it in and out, in and out, in and out. Wouldn't boil. Darn, come on here. So I'd hold it a little bit longer and pull it back. No. A little bit longer, look at it. No, it's not boiling. Put it in there. Okay, it's going to boil this time. Well, it did. Boom! And all the stuff came out of the test tube all over the top of the stove, So, man, the big job cleaning up the stove and the surrounding floor, all that kind of stuff. So I said, okay, I did something wrong. I've got to try that again. So I did it. So I recreated that situation, new test tube full of potassium permanganate, held it out there. Same thing happened. All over the stove, cleaned that up. Said, okay, I got to come up with something. I thought, well, in my kit, there's some corks. I'll put a cork in that baby, and it won't bubble up. And it didn't bubble up. It exhausted and painted the ceiling of the kitchen purple. So I didn't have to clean the stove. I had to paint the ceiling. So after that, it was garage norm. You go in the backyard or you go in the garage. So in high school with some guys, we had lab privileges to go in and do experiments before class. And so one day it was a 4-story high school near downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we went in one day and we got diverted from what we were going to do. And somebody says, I know how to make gunpowder. We can make fireworks. And we're on the 4th floor down here, and before school, the kids all gathered down here on steps so we could make fireworks and throw down there and decimate this crowd that's down there, flirting with one another. So we got some potassium nitrate saltpeter and some charcoal sulfur, and, might be mortar and pestle and ground it all up and making gunpowder. And we were wrapping some paper up to be the coating, and somebody said, we need to jazz this up a little bit. He said, I bet if we put a little sulfuric acid in there, it'll make it better. So nobody thinking, I said, okay, go ahead, put a little in there, poured a milliliter of sulfuric. Well, immediately started reacting with the whole thing, caught it on fire, kablooey, blew up this mortar and pestle that we had in there, made a big crater in the lab, in the lab table, and smoke everywhere. So the teacher come running in, and we're all standing there and said, oh, we don't know what happened. But they of course found out, and we didn't do that anymore. But, and then I was able to take that experience and bring it to NASA, where it was I got to run rocket engines, which sometimes burned up. Many of these things I've seen the fire come out the side instead of out the nozzle, because it burned a hole in the side for some reason. When it did that, I had to go figure out, what happened. Many of these things, 6 or 8, I've blown up like a hand grenade until I figured out what was going on. And then in order to do that, I took away this metal combustion chamber and put in a plexiglass one, and got a very high-speed camera and synchronized it so that I could take pictures of just the first 2 or 3 milliseconds of when the propellants first start coming into the rocket combustion chamber, the fuel and oxidizer come in and begin burning. So I had a camera that would take pictures at about 50,000 frames a second. So you could look at that and try to see what's the physics of what's actually happening in there that's causing this explosion. We were able to figure it out, and the solution was just put a little heater on this injector up here, keep it all a little bit hotter, and that didn't happen. And so you always look for the simplest and easiest solution. Let's see, what time are you guys gonna go away? About 11 or? Okay.
We've got about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So let's, does anybody have any questions?
Wait, did you personally go there?
No.
I thought you said like 6 times, so I was like.
No, we went 6 times.
Okay.
And a lot of people confuse him with Richard Chaffee, who died in the Challenger.
Roger did.
Excuse me, Roger. Richard was all alone.
So yeah, let me give one other question. Yes, ma'am.
Are you still in contact with a lot of people you knew working on these space projects?
Absolutely. I have, for many years, I was president of the Retirees Association, and I'm the immediate past president now. So, I know where hundreds of people are. So I frequently get calls from some of them that have moved away from the Houston area and said, hey, I want to get a hold of Betty Ann. You know where she is? Oh, yeah, here's her email, or here's her phone number. And Buzz Aldrin used to call me about once a year and say, hey, Norm, do you know where so-and-so is? And, I'd say, yeah, I think so. But if I can't find it, I know somebody who knows where they are. So yeah. And many of the astronauts belong. When I got here the other day and spent my first day over in Portland, one of my good friends who was a flight director during the Apollo days lives in Portland, and we met for lunch over there and shared stories. He had become manager of the International Space Station, and I was one of the chief engineers. He and I had some head-button sessions, but we were always good friends, so we relived a lot of that kind of stuff. But let me tell you one quick story. So, thinking about the immensity of the universe, I've always been interested not only in engineering but cosmology. And I love the Hubble Space Telescope and the pictures that it takes, and reading about the Hubble pictures and that kind of stuff. It has one camera which can be pointed at an area for a very long time, and the more it's pointed at an area, the more photons of light come in and so it can take pictures of something that's very, very, very far away because very few photons are reaching the camera. So